right, this weekend was the PFL Supercard. It was Francis Ngannou versus René Ferreira. As you could tell from my instant reaction video, I really enjoyed the undercard. Shut the these commentators. It wasn't a good fight, dude. Where I totally wasn't crashing out. And it didn't help that I had that toothpaste stain on my sleeve. I didn't even realize that till later. That's embarrassing, but it is what it is. I don't even got that many viewers, so not that many people saw it. But I'm not going to rant about that again. If you want to see that, you can see my previous video on my channel. Now, before we get to the video, 97% of the people watching aren't subscribed. That's just ridiculous to me. That blows my mind. If you enjoy boxing and MMA and influencer boxing content, I post 3 times a week on here, 4 times a week on Fight Week, which is most weeks. So yeah, if you're into that, subscribe. Now, what you guys are here for, obviously you saw the title. I've been really curious on what Francis Ngannou is going to do next since he fought in the PFL, and if we're being honest, there isn't really any star power. The biggest heavyweight star just got used in their super fight. So I'm going to talk to you guys about what I think should be next for Francis Ngannou. We're going to start with boxing and then UFC, because I'm going to be honest, I'm sorry to like my potentially 10 PFL fans watching. I don't see Francis fighting in the PFL again. There is no gain for him whatsoever. And it seems he fought in the PFL in general for his son that passed, Kobe. He wanted to fight for his son, and he was talking about retirement a couple times. That could be the simple answer, but I'm going to give you guys some other options on what I think could happen to Francis Ngannou. Now, for the first matchup in boxing, I think Jarrell Big Baby Miller could be a good option. He's 26-1. He came off a loss to Daniel Dubois, and then he just drew with Andy Ruiz recently. So he's coming off a loss and a draw. Francis is obviously coming off the loss with a knockout with Anthony Joshua. He did well against Tyson Fury. People got to remember that. Obviously, Anthony Joshua is way more powerful than Tyson Fury. And to be honest, I probably favor Anthony Joshua in that fight in general. Jarrell Miller isn't the biggest heavyweight, meaning by height, Francis would have an advantage in that department. Francis is more dense. Jarrell is a bit more soft-bodied, if I'm going to be nice. But he is a heavyweight that is pretty normal for heavyweights. And I know some of you might be saying Jarrell Big Baby Miller isn't a star like that, but I totally disagree. I think he's hilarious. He does a lot of work on social media. He does a great job promoting fights. He had Daniel Dubois out of character in their press conference, having Daniel Dubois said every baby has their daddy. Like, that probably took 99% of Daniel Dubois' brain, but it is what it is.
Every baby has a daddy, and I'm going to beat you like I'm your daddy.
But there's just something about Jarrell Baby Miller that just makes me laugh when he talks.
It's so funny,
I'm going to teach you a lesson.
You know, after the Usyk fight, you know, I heard he finally got some vagina. So I'm happy for you. And I applaud you that you know what the gushy feel like. Well, I'm going to make your face mushy come Saturday night. So all you guys, please tune in.
So yeah, I really think that Jarrell Miller would do a great job selling the fight. I think it's a favorable enough matchup for Francis Ngannou so he could take the fight. I don't think he's going to take another Anthony Joshua-esque fight unless it's the Fury rematch. I'll get to that. But yeah, my first suggestion for Francis' comeback to boxing is definitely Jarrell Big Baby Miller. The next suggestion I have for him in boxing is Dillian Whyte. Dillian Whyte is 30-3. He has suffered losses to Tyson Fury. You see me? I got them reflexes. That's why Misfits got to get me in the goddamn ring, bro. Fucking boom, boom, boom. Neon's chin's gone if he faces me. I kind of getting sidetracked there. Jesus. As I was saying, he has suffered losses to Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua. There's some reasoning behind that fight matchup-wise when it comes to wins and losses. Francis has really proved himself in that Fury fight, like I said before. I think somebody like Dillian Whyte could be a good matchup for him. Dillian Whyte is also 36 years old. It isn't even the Dillian Whyte that got TKO'd by Anthony Joshua back in the day. It is an older version, so that should be a factor too. Now, I don't think it is going to be as hyped up as the Jarrell Big Baby Miller fight, even though some of you might not think so. I think Jarrell Miller will sell the fight better than Dillian Whyte would, but it still will be a good fight matchup-wise, so I think that would be a good one too. And now for the final suggestion for boxing. Come on now, it's a Tyson Fury rematch. Even though on paper it does make me a little bit nervous knowing that Tyson knows what Francis is going to do now, They were saying I was nervous before the first fight. You know what I mean? I thought that Francis was going to get schooled, kind of like how he did against Anthony Joshua, but he didn't. A lot of people actually thought he won that fight. I definitely think he won that fight. I just don't think they wanted Tyson to lose to somebody debuting in their first fight. It literally would have been the most wild thing in sports history, most craziest underdog win in sports history, and they took that away from Francis. Now, obviously, Fury is tied up in the Usyk rematch in December, so it would be a long time before he fights Ngannou. But I think Ngannou is taking some time off anyways because he's still going through some stuff with his loss of his son. Doesn't seem like he's fully over it. But if Fury ends up losing the rematch to Usyk, which I honestly think he does, I think that's the perfect bounce back fight for Fury if he were to get another win on Francis, even though he lost, in my opinion. So yeah, I don't really gotta explain to you guys that Tyson is a draw. He's very entertaining in the build-up of fights and inside the ring. He's a showman at heart, and that's why I love Tyson Fury no matter what, even though he had a bit of a delusional stance after the Francis fight. And this is going to sound crazy, but it does really seem like Tyson Fury really struggles with some power punchers. I know Usyk isn't really a true heavyweight, but he sure fucking hits like one. And Francis had him rattled too. Like, whenever there's power in front of him, he seems a bit more cautious, and it gets him in trouble. He isn't as active with his jab and his straight punches and his movement. He gets himself trapped in corners more often. And his showmanship kind of gets him in trouble too, because he seems like, oh, that didn't hurt me, and then he'll get rocked again. Not the best look, but that's exactly why I think this rematch is perfect. Even if Francis were to lose again, it would be a spectacle, it would make a bunch of money, and it just makes sense. Next, I'm going to be talking about the UFC matches that he could get, assuming that he just thugs out the rest of his PFL deal and then re-signs with the UFC later for a bunch of money. My other two are going to be a bit more obvious, so I'm going to give one non-title fight that he could potentially do to set up a title fight later. Now, I know it's most likely he would come back to UFC for a title shot, but hear me out. So, what if he fought the winner of Ciryl Gane versus Volkov? I think that would be a banger matchup for either of them. A rematch with Ciryl Gane would be fire. Probably would just get out-wrestled again, but it is what it is. Volkov is a dog. I think he might win the fight against Ciryl Gane, in my opinion. I think 308 is this weekend, so I'm going to be talking about this Friday. Now, for the rest of this, I'm going to talk about Volkov because I honestly think he's going to win. Volkov is 38-10. I think 24 knockouts, and he submitted 4 people. So he has ground game, and he could strike. That's why I think him versus Ngannou would be better than him versus Gane, because like I said before, I think Ngannou just wrestles Gane again, and it's as simple as that. Probably a ground and pound finish, exactly like the Renan Ferreira fight. So yeah, stylistically, I think this is like basically as good as it gets as a fight. Obviously, I'm going to be talking about other ones in a second. But Francis Ngannou versus Alexander Volkov would be a banger. Volkov would give Francis some problems on the feet, and it's not as simple as Francis shooting in this fight. He can't just shoot and win in this fight. He would have to have more of a game plan than just to wrestle. He would have to have some striking game plans, some clinch game plans. We're going to see probably the best version of Francis in that fight, and that's why I want to see it. But there is some better matchups because they are for the title. Now, I'm going to make this next suggestion quick because I have certain feelings about this. It's Jon Jones. Now, for multiple reasons, this isn't likely. Now, first of all, Jon Jones ducked the sport for 3 to 5 years because Francis was there. Just telling you the truth there. He was not trying to fight Francis. Second of all, Jon Jones is going to probably retire after beating Stipe, which I do think he's going to beat Stipe. I think it's going to be exactly like the Gane fight. He's just going to tap Stipe in the first round. It's going to be boring. We're going to waste our time. Fuck Jon Jones. Anyways, yeah, I don't think it happens, but by some miracle, Jon Jones calls out Francis Ngannou after he beats Stipe. I would love to see it, even though I do think that Francis gets tapped by Jon also. There might be a slight chance that Francis could out-physical him on the ground where he could survive and get back up. Oh my god, just imagine if Francis were to knock out Jon Jones, dude. Oh my goodness, please. Please. But probably not going to happen. The guy I'm going to talk about next is more likely to knock out John. And now the real fight to make John, well, yeah, John Jones should fight him, but he's not going to. The real fight, even though it is the obvious one for Francis in the UFC, is the real heavyweight champion of the world, Tom Aspinall. Now, this would be an absolute super fight, dude. The baddest men on the planet facing each other. Simple as that. That's the simple marketing that the UFC would do. The two baddest men on the planet going head to head. What else do I gotta say? To be honest, Tom Aspinall has been dominant. He's finished, I can't remember the exact number, 4 to 6 of the top 10 in the first round. His average fight time is 2 minutes. An absolute beast. And John won't fight him. But I think Francis will if he goes back to UFC. Oh man, that would be such a banger fight. Obviously, Francis would have some problems on the ground with Tom Aspinall. Aspinall is elite on the ground and on the feet. That's why, dude, he just touches people with a straight and they just die. They just die in that ring. Tom Aspinall has some unreal natural strength. Obviously, he's built on the strength even more, so he's just a monster, dude. Heavyweight should not be built like Tom Aspinall. He looks like he's built out of stone. He's not defined or anything, but he just looks like a big block of a human being, dude. It's crazy. And Francis is like that too. He's more ripped, though. I just think that would be the greatest fight in MMA. Francis Ngannou versus Tom Aspinall for the heavyweight title. The true two baddest men in the world, not old man John. John is just mixing up this whole heavyweight picture, holding up a whole division, and it sucks. But hopefully Francis makes a comeback to the UFC within the next 5 months and faces Tom Aspinall for that belt. That would be a super fight. So yeah, those are my suggestions for what should be next for Francis Ngannou. Let me know what you think should be next for Francis Ngannou in the comments. Let me know what you disagree with and why. Make sure you guys subscribe because it says that 97% of you aren't subscribed. That is just dumb. If you enjoy boxing and MMA and influencer boxing content, you should just subscribe. I post 3 times a week on here, 4 times a week on Fight Week, which is honestly most weeks at this point. Fighting has been active recently, giving me good content. Yeah, thank you guys for listening to me yap like usual. Peace out.